0, 1. Let's get started.
And a very good evening to all. Welcome to another episode of the Fan Forum here on the Black and White United YouTube channel. Matt, great to have you back for another episode.
Always good to be back, my friend. Just saying off air, it's a little bit weird this weekend. We're at round 2 of the season. No Collingwood game to discuss, but yeah, plenty of noise in the media about obviously opening round, which we've echoed the last couple of weeks, and I've got a bit of solution about how we could fix this moving forward. But yeah, 7 games this weekend, and out of 24 rounds of footy this year, we're going to have 9 rounds of footy where we've got 7 games. So it's a bit of a funny feeling this weekend with no Pies game, as I said.
Yeah, I know. Like I was looking at, they were showing on Footy Classified, I think it's something like 8 rounds leading up until the mid-season where you're going to have all these teams missing out. And this week just happens to be 3 of the 4 prelim finalists from last year that are missing. And then on top of that, you've got probably arguably the second biggest club in Melbourne and Carlton who are missing out as well. So it's ridiculous. But before we get straight into everything, just a massive thank you to our sponsors for the show. So the Hopper Bros Barbecue, for all your tips and tricks and everything barbecue, make sure you give them a follow on Instagram. And also Ultra Fix Surface Specialist. I haven't got the logo up on this background yet. I've got to edit that still. That's one thing I've got to do, but their details are on the Instagram page and stuff like that. Give Julio a call for all your surface needs. He will be able to help you out. Fantastic Collingwood supporter and huge supporter of the show. Matt, Adelaide. Let's just get straight into it, because I think, look, just off the bat, I think it was one of those losses where, even though we lost by 14 points, I had 2 feelings when the game finished. One was that we got robbed of the momentum with some of the umpiring decisions, which I've already harped on about a fair bit over the last few days. So it is what it is. The other one too, though, is it sort of feels like we lost by a bit more. At the end of the day, it was only 14 points, but it just felt like we were never, apart from the times where in the second quarter where we sort of like had a bit more control, and then sort of like that push at the first half of the last quarter, it sort of felt like we didn't really have any sort of control in the game, only for those sort of like those 10-minute spurts. It was a bit disappointing. I thought it was a bit deflating, but at the same time, we know that Adelaide are going to be a decent side this year. I think that's fair to say. Final scores were Collingwood 11-13-79 to Adelaide 13-15-93. What were some of your key takeaways from our loss to the Crows?
If you read the comments on social media, that everyone's sort of putting a line through Collingwood after 2 rounds. You're right. Extremely disappointing performance by our boys. A lot of disconnection from midfield into forward 50. I'm like you. I'm sick and tired of hearing, and look, everyone's entitled to their opinion, let me say that, but I'm sick and tired of so-called Collingwood supporters, and it's not just Collingwood supporters, it's football fans in general. When you jump on AFL pages on social media, and I'm going to name 2 players here, and I will go into bat for them all day long, twice on a Sunday. Dan McStay, he's absolutely copped so much shit this week about his performances in the last 2 weeks. Obviously, people have got narrow minds, because without him, we don't get into the 2023 grand final and then ultimately win it. Come back from ACL, as we know. The other player, Jack Buller. Now, he's been at the club for 2 games. He's at it, I think, 9 or 10 games before he played for Collingwood with Sydney last year. People bashed Lachie Schultz in his first year at Collingwood. Look at him now. People were bashing Dan Houston last year. Dan Houston comes out and gets best on ground for Collingwood last week against Adelaide. He had 28 disposals. The week before he had 32, I think it was, off the top of my head. He's been an absolute standout along with Nick and Josh Dacos, and I'm going to put Jordan De Goey in that first game. We'll go through the votes for our award a bit later on. But stop losing your fucking minds, people. It's 2 games, okay? We've now got the perfect opportunity to, and I know this is going to sound silly, but we get a chance to regroup after a disappointing performance. It's not so much the result, it's the performance that I want to focus on here. And we've got a massive block of football coming up. GWS next week at Marvel Stadium. Brisbane Lions, back-to-back premiers on the Gabba. We know what we've done the last 2 years against them in Brisbane. Then we go to Adelaide, we've got Freo for gather round. Then we come back to Melbourne and we've got Carlton, Essendon, Hawthorn, Geelong. Then we get a bit of reprieve. We've got West Coast. So calm your farm. There's some news that's come out tonight about a player that is going to be returning to hopefully Collingwood training as early as Monday. We'll talk about that later in the program. But again, it was just a really rusty, disappointing performance. We had elements there on Sunday the week before against St Kilda. I wouldn't say we got away with a win. We were the better side on the night against St Kilda. Adelaide were very rusty. I've actually tipped them this week to beat the Dogs in Adelaide, and there's a reason for that. But I think if we look at the personnel that we had, Billy Frampton tried his ass off down back.
Yeah.
Tim
I've got a point just about Billy Frampton I want to make when you finish. So I actually wrote that down, so keep going. Yeah.
But we lost by 14 points. We have Darcy Moore and or Jeremy Howe on that side. Different story. Do we win the game? I've got no doubt that we would have won the game. And if we didn't win the game, we would have lost by less than a kick. But that's how instrumental. You take out 2 of your key defenders, and yes, they're over for 30, and yes, they got calf muscle injuries, and this, that, and the other, and whatever fucking excuse anyone wants to come up with. You put 2 keys, and we saw what Darcy Moore did in that qualifying final against Adelaide last year. He controls that back line. It's a different ball game.
Mm-hmm. And let's face it, the team from the qualifying final to now really wasn't much difference. It pretty much just take out Mason Cox and put in Will Parker. And obviously the 2 injuries that we had there. I mean, 95% of the team is very similar. Hatters made a really good comment. I just want to go back on to, and I think this is a really good way to look at it, because like the emotions are pretty high and stuff like that after the win, 24 hours after the win. And I'll put my hand up. I didn't really look at it in this sort of angle until I'd say probably the last couple of days, really. But he said here, he goes, I guess when you factor the Pies were shithouse for 2 quarters, umpires were atrocious, and how we managed a 14-point loss is a testament to our defensive structure. Now, this is a perfect segue into the point that I wanted to make about Billy Frampton. People are counting our defence. Obviously, it was a bit short and stuff like that. And like I did have my opinions about potentially bringing in Cochrane just for a bit of height and stuff like that. I think it would have helped. But all this talk about our defence, and teams are only scoring less than, or under 100 points against us. Adelaide got a little bit generous with a couple of free kicks they got right in front of goal and 50-metre penalties, and they scored 93 points against us. But our defence held up pretty good. The problem, I thought, held around the ground, and it wasn't even so much just the forwards itself. I think it was the delivery into the forward line was a bit of hit and hope. I think that was a real thing, because if you look at Jack Buller, and you look at the guy's taken 2 marks since he's been at Collingwood. Those marks have been higher up the ground, okay? Not so much directly in front of goal or within 25 metres where you really want him to take it to go back and stop the goal. But I think that's because the delivery into the forward line hasn't been the greatest, and he's competing against quite a few defenders, because when the ball gets put high up, obviously the Adelaide players aren't going to stay on their forward that isn't contesting for the ball. They're going to try and go crunch the pack and build a wall around it when the ball comes to ground. And Buller's on his own competing against 3 or 4 of them. So I think that to go on your point in regards to the forwards, I think the onus on Jack Buller, I think, has been a little bit too harsh, considering he's only played 12 games of footy and 2 of them being at Collingwood.
Been extremely.
The stuff about Dan McStay, look, I'm not going to lie, I was pretty disappointed with his performance, especially on his 200th game. I don't think we can beat around the bush there, but I just feel as if we got Dan McStay from Brisbane when he was playing a bit of a nomad sort of role around the ground and stuff like that, not so much as a key forward. We wanted him to be that key forward. If you look at his time at Brisbane, especially the year that after we picked him up, he had so much time in the ruck, so much time in the middle of the ground, in the guts, towards across the half back line, then in forward, a bit of an all-rounder, so to speak. Very similar to what Lee Brown did for us back in the day. Obviously, the game's a bit different now, but the role is very, very similar. And I think that's might be what we might have to do with him, because I'm not sure if the 3 tall forwards are going to work. I mean, we've got time to fix it now. As you said, we've got the bye coming up, and then we've got a whole stack of games coming in, which we can play ourselves into form pretty quickly. We don't have to win all of them coming up, but, I think we'll go 3-1 over the next 4. So I think that's something there to look forward to. But the stuff about Frampton, the crap that Frampton's copped over the past 2 weeks, I mean, St Kilda, he had probably one really big turnover where he got the ball out of the back line and turned it over in the middle. But apart from that, the blokes, without Howe and Darcy Moore, they're the guys holding the whole thing up by himself with his height. He's literally holding all the aerial contests and everything. And the only reprieve that he gets in the air is when Darcy Cameron comes back and he does, the intercept marking. And that's only because at that stage then Buller and McStay have rotated in the ruck. So I do think the criticism of Frampton is actually really unjust compared to what he's doing. And to be fair, we're 1-1, and that we lost against last year's minor premiers, which, I think the result was a little bit influenced, but that's just my personal opinion. But geez, there is a lot of positives to look at this game. And there's a guy name that you said before, which you can quickly touch on, in Dan Houston. His performance the last 2 weeks, but especially against Adelaide, was fantastic.
No, he was everywhere. I think I gave him third best on ground, or one vote in our votes. So I actually gave him 3 votes on Saturday night. I just thought he was absolutely fantastic. He's now playing that role across half back that he's been employed to do. And I go back to what I said. Lockie Schultz copped so much in his first year at Collingwood, and everyone was saying, get rid of him, he's no good, this, that, and the other. It does take time, and everyone knows, and I'll use the analogy so everyone can understand it. If you're going to a different workplace, so if you leave one employer to go to another employer, you have to learn the systems and you have to learn the analysis about how that new company works. It's no different to football. You've got obviously game plans to work out. You've got roles that you need to understand. You've got teammates you have to understand. You've got systems that you have to understand. It's no different to a workplace. So unfortunately with AFL, it does seem to take, a good season or maybe a season and a half, 2 seasons to adapt to that. But we've seen Lockie Schultz come good. We're now seeing the best of Dan Houston. He continues that form. There's no doubt that he will get another All-Australian Blazer. The one positive that I do want to alert you to, Andreas, tonight in relation to the Adelaide game, and I'll also allude it to the St Kilda game. I've just got my notes written down here. Inside 50s. Now, we talked about obviously bombing in the ball long. We had 59 inside 50s for 24 scoring shots on Saturday night. Now, and it was alluded to a couple of the footy shows in reviews on the weekend, but we were getting the ball sort of, 80 to 90 metres out on either wing, and we're just bombing it long. If players with ball in hand just lower the eyes and look for an option, or look at going more into the centre than what they already are and come through the corridor, you're going to see a lot more productivity from 59 inside 50s than 24 scoring shots. The week before, we had 40 against St Kilda for 23 scoring shots. So I don't think we're getting the ball into the inside 50s is the point I'm making. We just haven't got that connection there right. So it's a matter of obviously just making some tweaks there. And like I said, I've got no doubt that obviously next Friday night against GWS, hopefully Darcy Moore's back, hopefully Jeremy Howe's back.
At least one of them. Just to add a little bit of continuity to some structure stuff there.
Reef McInnes is 2 to 4 weeks away, according to the injury report that came out this week. So, our list is in a really good shape at the moment, so early in the season. Again, I know it's only 2 weeks and it probably sounds a little bit silly and cliche, but if we have a clean bill of health and we start to get, and obviously the VFL is kicking off next weekend, so we're going to get some experience into these kids for our VFL campaign. And our VFL side, I think we mentioned it a couple of weeks ago, it looks so stacked. There's a lot of potential through there. But I'm really looking forward to obviously seeing what we do now over the next 4 weeks. Like I said, Giants, Brisbane, Freo, 3 finals from last year. Then we've got Carlton, massive game against Essendon, potentially then against Hawthorn and Pendle's record-breaking game, which I do want to talk about a bit later.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a second. Yeah. That's one of the things I wanted to talk about too. Look, I wholeheartedly agree with you with the whole Dan Houston thing and changing workplaces and stuff like that and getting right, understanding the system. But the thing is, we experimented with our system with him last season and it didn't work realistically. It worked in patches within some games and stuff, but I think now we know his strengths. He knows his strengths within our side. And the way that he's played the first 2 games of the season, it looks as if Fly's just given him the keys and say, this is your role. You do it the way you need to do it. And he looks, what's the right word? He doesn't look as regimented as he did last season. Like, he looked very like, I've got to be here, and it wasn't as free-flowing. And I think the same was with Lachie Schultz in 2024, trying to understand his position in the side, trying to get used to everything, new teammates and stuff. And, you look at, a year and a half later, almost 2 years later, and I reckon Lachie Schultz is in contention for, a spot in the All-Australian squad this year if he continues the way that he's playing.
That elevation, sorry to cut you off, but I think that elevation into the leadership group, that's a reward for effort. And obviously I think he wants to make that role his own now. The other area that the club need to address over the next week leading in is the centre clearances. We've been absolutely smashed there. 13-16 is our record. So we're minus 15 at centre clearance over the last couple of weeks. Now, when you go back and have a look at the stats from the weekend especially, hit-outs, we won. I think we're a +8 or +9 at hit-outs. So Darcy Cameron's obviously getting his hand on the ball, which is great. Stoppages, we were +7, but centre clearances, we were -7. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done in there. How do you see, obviously we can come back and we talk about Mason Cox, but how do you see what is the solution for you in relation to the centre clearances? Every other aspect of the ground we seem to be doing, but to be smashed out of the centre in 2 weeks of footy is a massive concern, especially when you've had 16 yourself and you're -15.
I said this in the Into the Woods podcast, I think last night I was on. I said it in one of the other lives I did last week as well. I said it in my review, just not getting our hands on the ball first. And then when they're getting their hands on the ball first, we're not applying the defensive pressure strong enough in the centre to win it back, to win that initial clearance. And I feel as if when Darcy's in the ruck doing all the right things, he's just tapping it. It looks as if he's tapping it to no man's land. It looks as if he's tapping it and hoping that Nick or Pendles or whoever else, Josh or Bo, or I think we even saw Elliot in the middle at times against Adelaide, are hoping that they're going to be in that spot at that time. It doesn't always work, especially when the pressure's on. I mean, you're playing against elite midfielders. When we play against teams like Adelaide, but when we play against teams like the Cats, the Hawks, the Dogs, especially in their midfield, I think they've got one of the most potent midfielders in the midfields in the competition. When we play against those sides, you have to tap it to our advantage. You have to know where. And it just looks as if from the outside, he's just tapping it to no man's end, winning the tap outs, which is good, but we're not getting there first. So what's the problem? Is it the taps or is it the positioning in the midfield? Because I watched a few centre clearances, especially when I was at the game. And for me, it just felt like every time that they won a clearance, we were half a step behind. Every time they won a clearance and it was contested and the ball went to ground, we were next to them, but we were still behind them. I just felt like we just need to use a bit more initiative in the middle to get our hands on the ball first. But then when they do, our defensive pressure in the midfield is non-existent. But when it's turned over from the defence and we're bringing it up forward, geez, our boys can run that extra 10% towards goal. And I just feel like we're getting caught out a little bit in the midfield there. How do we fix it? I think it's just a positional thing. I think it's just a structural thing, and we'll probably over the next couple of weeks it should get better. But the signs were there against North Melbourne.
One player I want to discuss, and he's been brilliant in his first 2 games this season, Rowan Still. I think we found one here, mate. I think we really have found one. 2 goals on Saturday against Adelaide, and I think he got a goal or 2 against St Kilda as well. But for his story, obviously coming over from Perth last year, mid-season draft to come in and then obviously get a game. I think his first game was against Carlton last year, correct me if I'm wrong, for Collingwood. But he's really just coming to the side. And I think we've really found one here, and I'm really excited to see where his ceiling is. What are your thoughts on him?
Well, he only had, I'm just looking at the stats now. I knew he had 12 touches, but the touches were 6 kicks and 6 handballs. But I was saying at the ground to my old man when I was watching him, he seems to find himself in the right positions at the right time.
Yeah, correct.
And I think that's a massive thing. And like I'll do a comparison here, and I think a lot of the fans of the channel and stuff like that know my opinions on Ed Allen, and I'm going to obviously keep them very G-rated. But I find as if Ed Allen can find himself in the positions that he needs to be at times, but his disposal and sometimes his attack at the pill is a bit off. I thought his attack at the pill against Adelaide was okay, but his disposal was still a little bit off. And then some of the choices, it seems like he gets caught a fair bit, whereas Ryan Steele could play on that half-back wing, sort of half-forward position down there. And he seems to find himself in the right spot with a bit of space. And I think that's a massive comparison there. And I do think Ed Allen is quicker than him regardless. We saw that pick up and that bounce that he did. So he's got the speed. But Roan just seems to find himself at the right place at the right time. 6 kicks, 6 handballs, was able to snag 2 goals. I think that's what you need when you find these players, mid-season draft or late in the national draft or from the rookie spot and stuff. You just got to find the right one. And he hasn't put a foot wrong so far. And this is going back to last season as well, not just the 2 games he's played this season, but he's just done everything that he needs to do. He's a proper team player. And who knows where it could take us? Because, well, look, we haven't had bad luck with mid-season draft picks and stuff like that. But we had a really good one in Johnny Noble, and he's gone to the Gold Coast. We had the other one from South Australia. I've actually just had a bit of a mind blank, but he couldn't make it because of concussion. He got concussed. So there's a fair few. Ash Johnson as well. Showed a bit of promise at the start and then sort of just tapered off. You had injuries and stuff like that too. So, I think we've got one here. But if he can just play his role on the team properly as he's doing, there's no reason why we should drop him. I think there's other players the magnets will be looked at first before his.
There's 2 players. My good mate Dave Colino, who's watching not on the Gold Coast. He's a big Angus Anderson fan from the GWS scratch match, and he was getting quite excited about him. But he's really excited to see how Harry Dimatia fits into this side, and obviously when he gets a run, I don't think he's too far away from making his AFL debut. Harry, ripping bloke too, but there's some good little niggers in the woodpole coming through the Collingwood VFL side here. So onwards and upwards. I say be excited to see obviously where we land and where we are sort of after this Geelong game when we get a bit of a reprieve from the draw, and then we come off. We should statement against West Coast.
Yeah, I'm very concerned though about this VFL fixture. I mean, the VFL season starts, and then we've got the bye this week, and I think the only roadblock would be now with us is I want to see the debutants come into the team ASAP, but I think they're going to need the ones that don't have the actual experience of playing in the AFL side yet. They're probably going to need a couple of games in the 2s to get going again, because obviously we know there's difference between training and an actual game, match fitness, and there's a difference between the VFL and the AFL. There's a big jump there. So I wouldn't be surprised if we saw someone like a Will Hayes, Charlie West, if they want to do anything to the forline, which I hope they probably hold off for another week. But I'd like to see a Will Hayes maybe get a go quickly. Just so some of the players that have actually had some experience first get in there, and then go into the guys that haven't once the VFL season starts. It's just a shame though that we're the first week of the season we have a bye, and I find it really weird with that because there's 4 teams that are having a bye, so you could potentially still play an extra 2 games. The way the fixturing is done. So just a quick one before we move on, because I want to talk about the Scott Pendlebury situation, but do you think that there's room over the next 5 years, especially with Tassie coming into the competition, to potentially bring back an AFL reserves and scrap the VFL? And, if you have to put 50 or 60 guys on a list, and some are AFL players, some are VFL players, and then if the VFL needs top-up players, you can link someone from the local leagues like you do now anyway.
I 100% agree with you, and I was just about to say that myself. The sooner they bring in an AFL reserves competition, the better. The only concern that I would see with it is sides like Sandringham, sides like Port Melbourne, sides like Southport Sharks, who are already in the VFL competition, who are standalone clubs. Obviously, Coburg fall in that as well. But as far as that goes, I mean, it would work. 100% it would work. Bring back the old curtain races like they used to, have the 2s play before the 1s. Or if it's at the MCG, for example, if Collingwood are playing Carlton at the MCG, then play the reserves at either Icon Park or at Vic Park if they want to play it at Vic Park or at the KGM Centre, somewhere close by. Whereas if there's obviously your emergencies wouldn't play, but you could potentially have your VFL side if something goes down. And I use the analogy with Logan Morris. I think it was last year, the year before he made his debut, when he played a full game in the twos out at Springfield for the Brisbane Lions, and then famously scoffed those cheeseburgers down, and then goes out and plays his first AFL game later that day. So he's in effect played 8 quarters of footy in about 6 hours or 8 hours. So
I think back in the day, Tony Armstrong for Collingwood did that. I think in 2013 or 14 was down at Geelong, stopped the Maccas or the Hungry Jacks on the way back on the highway, and stuffed his baseball, and then Bucks called him and said, "Come to the ground, you're playing."
Yeah, a bit like Leggy Markov last year. He wasn't playing, but it was Bunnings. But yeah, I think for the again, and it might help bridge that gap between VFL and AFL because Josh Carmichael's the player.
I had just a mental blank then.
Great pick up there, Hatters. But obviously bridging that gap to if you get players playing in front of bigger crowds, so say for example they get the experience of playing the MCG or Marvel Stadium or Adelaide Oval, whatever, that might help bridge the gap as well. So I'm all for it. I think it has to happen, but again, I'm just concerned about those standalone clubs now. We know, obviously, the Southport Sharks have been a powerhouse in the last couple of years in the VFL, making it to 3 consecutive grand finals. So what happens to clubs like that? It would be my concern.
Like the Victorian-based clubs and stuff like that, it's pretty simple. You keep the VFL and you just do it as a standalone competition and you restructure it if you need to. But it's the interstate clubs that from Queensland and stuff that are obviously part of that now, because it's basically not the VFL, it's the Eastern Australian Football League. Like it's the whole East Coast playing, but you'd probably have to restructure the VFL maybe to even keep them there. But then at the same time, as a club like Southport, are they going to have the financial infrastructure and the financial backing to be able to travel and be able to do this most times? And that's an AFL problem. But I do think that you got to have an AFL reserves. I know they scrapped it years ago and they joined it, but it's just, I think since the COVID sort of stuff and the competitions being restructured after it hasn't really worked. And you got 20 teams in the competition now where you could have 20 teams for the AFL reserves and everybody just travels together. I mean, I think it's a no-brainer. And to be honest, you probably get a better look at your twos players when they're playing right in front of you right before the game too. You know, you get a real good look at who's ready because they're playing against the other AFL listed. And I think the level, if you had an AFL reserves competition to the VFL, is right in between that gap of AFL and VFL. It's right there. So the players are ready to go.
Obviously, with the academies in Queensland and New South Wales, is there a call for the under-19s to come back? Something similar.
It's a dream of. I've had that dream. Like, you know, you could pick up under-19 players on an actual AFL list from, you know, gun players that are, you know, didn't get drafted from the Coates League and stuff like that. Down here, or you know, from, you know, Western Australia, South Australia. You know, imagine you got some 18-year-old kid that plays down at Norwood or Glenelg and didn't get drafted, but he's an absolute gun. And then Collingwood call him arrested and say, "Hey, come to us and join our under-19s team for a year. And if you're good, we can draft you, or we can pick you up, or something like that." But it's just the drafts really compromised as well, so that plays a bit of a part into it. But geez, you just love to see a big squad together, and we pick the best players. And I know we do that now, but the competition's a lot more even in that sense as well. It's not so compromised.
Absolutely.
Just looking here. Matt, I've got to get your opinion as we move on about the whole Scott Pendlebury thing. I just want to ask you a question. Did you see Eddie Maguire's take on it on the Eddie and Jimmy podcast?
I did. Yeah, I did. My view on it. I'm old school, mate. And it's not because it's Scott Pendlebury. It's not because it's Collingwood. It's the AFL. If that incident is now considered to be a week suspension, I hate to say it, the game's fucked. The game is fucked. if Worrell had gone off with concussion, yep, okay, different story. It goes in line with obviously what the league is saying about protecting heads, etc. But two blokes going for the ball. I go back to when I grew up watching footy in the 80s and especially the 90s, and I mean, we look at two of the most amazing marks we've ever seen, and they're both running back with the flight of the ball. Jonathan Brown against Hawthorn in the MCG with no care for himself whatsoever about what was in front of him. He could clean someone up, could have cleaned himself up, and obviously Nick Riewoldt. But that bump, I felt, look, how do you look at it, mate? Do you look at it going, I can't bump him because I might get a week, or do I risk being dragged by the coach and given a good old-fashioned spray? It's a grey area which really needs to be cleared up. Glad that he obviously got downgraded to a fine. There would have been an absolute outrage if a guy with 426 games or 427 games gets a week for that. But, I mean, now you've got the media, and I was just listening to Nick Riewoldt on the agenda setters now. He's basically saying that his good guy persona is now gone because it's his fourth reportable offence in the last 3 years. So where do you draw the line on it, mate? I don't know, but just glad that obviously he's going to hopefully get to 432 games with no suspensions. It's going to be a record that Jack Crisp has come out today and said he wants to play until he's 40 to try and break the record. But yeah, I mean, Pendles is an absolute champion of the game. There's a lot of champions of the game from every side, and it would have been a shame for him to get rubbed out for what was I thought the contest was there. Both blokes braced and went from there, but it's just my opinion.
There's two guys on the MRO or the tribunal thing. One's Darren Gaspar, ex-defender at Richmond. There's another one too. The name just escapes me at the moment, but you would think even those players playing, in the 90s and 2000s, you got to have some sort of awareness about how quick this game is and about how physical this game is, and also take into consideration the shape of the ball and where the ball bounces, because the ball was, if it bounced up or towards him, Pendles gets the ball and then he braces for contact, right? Or he gets cleaned up, so to speak. Yep. David Neitz is the other one too, sorry. So I just think that they should definitely have some sort of biased opinion in favour of the person who has either elected to brace or elected to bump in that split second. Now, Pendles never came off the ground. Correct. He just put his shoulders down and came ready for contact. He turns to him and Worrell cleans up Pendles, and Pendles is knocked out. He's gone for 2 weeks. Okay? Now, I'm pretty sure the duty is always, when you play football, whether it's local footy, state footy, AFL, to make sure that you're okay at all times. Yep. We've got to get away from this. We've got to get away from this persona as like, you have to protect the other player. Your responsibility is the other player. No, my responsibility is me and making sure that I don't get brain damage, because if I do, I'm going to sue the shit out of the AFL, and they've already got the lawsuit and stuff like that behind the scenes happening.
Funny you say that, because I'll give you an example and a segue that it's literally just come to me now, just as you said that about concussion. There was a bloke that used to play in their NRL for Melbourne Storm, and I think Parramatta as well, Curtis Scott. Now, careful what I say here, but Curtis Scott was arrested he was arrested last night, actually.
Spent the night after the Sydney Swans
game. In the lockup. And the point I'm getting to is that his solicitor today has said in the courtroom he's blaming his behaviour due to a concussion that he received in Las Vegas during a rugby league game that he's never been treated properly for. So that's the kind of stuff that we need to obviously be very careful with. It's obviously, if you do get concussed, make sure you know, obviously you're getting the right care about it. We know obviously about CTE and what the effects has, and that's obviously caused to a lot of ex-players or ex-professional sports players committing suicide, which is tragedy. But in that instance with Curtis Scott, you know what, I've got concussion, etc., just backs up what you said there. So it's an extremely fine line. I think you're right, though. You're taught to obviously protect yourself. When I played junior footy and even the level of sport that I got up to, which was quite high level, is to protect yourself on impact. But also, you want to make sure that your technique's right and everything. And I think like that Pendlebury bump was absolutely textbook, didn't leave the ground. Take you back to the Braden Maynard one, which is another one with Brayshaw. Now, Brayshaw obviously was knocked out, but if you go back and study that footage, and this is what got Bruzzy off, Braden didn't break his line. Yes, he left the ground to went to smother. He did not break his line, whereas when Brayshaw kicked it, he actually moved offline and caused a collision. So I'll get crucified by Melbourne supporters for saying that Brayshaw came off his line, but go back and have a look at the footage because Braden Maynard didn't break his line, jumped, and then as he jumped, Brayshaw was gone into his pass, so Braden Maynard had nowhere to go. So,
and about 2 minutes before that incident, he also collected Tom Mitchell's knee or whatever it was. Right. So pretty sure the damage was almost done there alone. But yeah, I've just got a question here from Chris, and I've also got Sean in the background. I'm just about to get Sean on too, so he can join in for a little bit as well. Yeah, Chris says, Andreas, I have a question. Can we appeal the fine that Pendle's got? I'm sure the club would love to, but I think there's a deadline of a month they've got until they have to pay it. Last time I heard, and that was a while ago, that they usually send an invoice and then they've got a month to pay the fine. I don't know if they can appeal the fine. I think that's it, and then that's sort of like move on after that. But I think if there was a 1 week suspension for Scott Pendlebury, then 110% they'd be back there tonight appealing it, or Thursday night, whatever it is, appealing it. But I'm pretty sure that you have to pay the fine within the deadline that it's due. Otherwise, the actual player who got the fine can't play. So it's Ben's like, he goes, I'd love them just not to pay it. Yeah, well, I think the 427 is just after when the invoice is due, if they go by all records.
Maybe the forum viewers can pass the hat around and pay the $3,000. So either that or you get a roughie up at the Trots on Saturday night, and hopefully it pays about $151, and you go from there.
Pretty much. Just before we get there you go. Sorry, Brayshaw ran into Taylor Adams' knees. Had us with the stats tonight. Very happy with that. Thank you for correcting me there. Just before we get Sean on, we'll just go through our votes for, or the total votes so far for the Daniel Nardella MVP trophy, which will be awarded on behalf of the channel to the Collingwood player who's most deserving of that and who we voted for throughout the season. The voting is done by all the co-hosts across the channel. So I'm not going to name them all, but all the co-hosts that are all on my show, so the Share and Stand, the Fan Forum, the Social Club, are all in on it. These are the votes as it stands at the moment after round one. We've got Nick Dacos on 29, Dan Houston on 17, Josh Dacos on 10, Jordan DeGoey on 7, Harry Perryman 3, Lockie Shields 3, Scott Pendlebury on 2, and Jack Crisp on 1. Some honourable mentions there too to Darcy Cameron and Billy Frampton, who a bit stiff not to be on there at the moment, but have done quite exceptional the first 2 weeks. And also here we can show everybody, we do actually have the trophy. So it's all engraved and stuff and everything, which we'll be awarding. It's a bit hard to say on here, but I'll take a proper photo of it and chuck it on Instagram and stuff for everybody to see. So yeah, that'll get awarded to the Collingwood player, which I'm sort of hoping that you and Hatters can sort of help me tee up. Which will be
I will reach out to illustrious president and CEO and see what we can arrange, my friend. But I can't see that being an issue at all.
Yeah, that'd be great. We've got Sean in the background waiting patiently. We'll add him to the stage. Give me 1 second.
Hey guys.
Hey Sean, how are you, mate?
Yeah, doing pretty good. Just finished a gym session. Only just literally got back like 10 minutes ago and saw you guys live, and sort of was in a mad sort of rush to get back. So
good. All good. What was your take on Saturday night against Adelaide?
Okay, yeah, cool. We can actually talk about footy instead of talking about a fine that is just God, you love the AFL. It's actually funny. As much as Pendle's information has come around, I've actually forgotten the Adelaide game. I reckon I could.
It's a bit like that.
Round 0, then probably more round 1.
Yeah.
Oh God. Yeah, I mean,
Well, better yet, Hal, I'll give you this question, Sean.
yeah.
Give me, who do you think so far has been like your standout performer over the last 2 games that we were looking at and we weren't expecting? So we've already spoken about Rowan Steele, we've spoken about Danny Houston and stuff like that, we've spoken about Billy Frampton. Is there anybody in your mind, and it can be one of those players that comes to you, and obviously you're a big watcher of the game, we know your thoughts and stuff, who you think has really popped up over the past 2 weeks?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm very happy to see Rowan Steele play the way that he is. I feel like he's still going to be a bit of a slow burn over the season. One of the big bold predictions that I've had is that I think he'll slot into our top 15 players by the end of the season. So I think he's doing that pretty nicely at the moment. Probably trying to engage my the fan side of me. I'm really enjoying Bo at the moment. He's obviously not getting like a ton of like stats and stuff, but I feel like just with his intent, he's being a lot more aggressive for the moment, if that makes any sense. I'm really enjoying the fact that he's getting the handball pendles. He's probably stats wise, I feel like it's still about the same, but I'm just noticing he's more willing to take the moments. And I know it probably sounds like so silly and it's so minor, but from a guy that was very like laid back in nature and very sort of, looking to pass first, like the fact that he's actually shooting for goal first rather than passing. We know he can pass. We know he's at least in my opinion, I think he's very underrated through his disposal, but that's just me. And I think a lot of the times he screws up his disposal is when he's like, when he's just got no options ahead of him and he just has to do something, so he ends up turning it over. But when he has a actual option, I feel like he's normally pretty good hitting targets. And yeah, I'm just super happy that, that he seems to be taking ownership of his own career. And I'm just, this has been a player that I've sort of been trying to back for so damn long, pretty much since day one, really. And I think the fact that he's showing the aggressive intent, similar to how we see Nick, like Nick Dacos is obviously in the top end category of if you want to see hunger in a player, Nick is that player. So the fact that we're sort of seeing more and more glimpses of Bo doing it, I think that's probably the thing that's probably made me happiest the most, because I know how talented Bo is. But I think Bo's got to do it rather than like just have it be under the potential sort of banner, because you can only do so much with potential. At the end of the day, you got to kick goals, you got to get the footy, you have to do all these things. So, but the fact that he's showing the intent to want to be that player, I'm giving huge ticks to him so far.
So he got 17. He got 17 disposals against Adelaide. Kicked 1 goal, 1. 12 kicks, 5 handballs, 4 marks. Laid 4 tackles. Was able to get a clearance and actually had 434 meters gained. So that's actually, if you look at the meters gained category, he was he was in the top 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. He was actually 10th on the ground for meters gained. So I think with Bo, I really want to see, so he can get 17 disposals and 1 goal. I'd love to see a 20 disposal game, 2 goal game from him, and I think that's the next level where he can get to, hopefully this season. The years before, it was between 10 and 15. 1 or 2 goals a game, but get those disposals a bit higher because he's so damaging without the footy, with his tackling pressure and stuff. When he's got the footy, he can really take it to that absolute next level. Is there anything you wanted to add there, Matt?
Yeah, there's 2 key stats that you have missed there, which sort of will probably. I was just about to read out obviously both stats, but he had 5 score involvements and 2 goal assists as well. Where you're right, his defensive pressure, as we saw it last year and the year before, is absolutely second to none. He's a bull. There's no 2 ways about it. To back up what obviously Sean said on Saturday night, what I was really impressed with was his ability to get back to what we've seen in the past, where he can take the ball on true centre wing position and then start to run and drive that into the 50. He's not afraid to take the game on either. So, but I'm 100% with you, Andreas. I'd love to see him get up around sort of the 20 to low 20s and kick 2 goals. But when you're reading, obviously, the stats we've just read out, and like I said, 2 goal assists and 5 score involvements, he's had a really good start of the season as well. I think the longer that obviously the season goes, he's just going to get better and better and better each week. So he's a key integral part on both sides of the ball, and I'm really excited to see where he can go.
Just a quick one now. We touched on it at the start of the show, and I didn't want to miss this chance. And now that we've got Sean here, I think it's really good to have a quick 5-minute chat about it. We've got a bye this week. There's no footy this week.
Yep.
We can sit here and we can talk about the opening round thing, and we can talk about that to death, and every single channel's talking about it on their own stuff, especially the ones that are got the first bye this week in round 2. The ladder's going to be compromised till after the King's birthday game because of thing. And if you looked at last year's season, the ladder was actually compromised the entire year because of the rescheduled game. Well, no, it was to the very last game because of the Essendon Gold Coast, the Cyclone Alfred pushback. Yeah. So we never got a true indication of the ladder, and to the point where the Bulldogs had to come to work the week after they didn't make the finals, just in case they were to make it, and Essendon was to do, a Bradbury and get over the line, then the whole thing is sort of compromised. Is it too early to have a bye? Because we're trying to get into form here. Like, is there some way that this can be fixed and without harping on about the opening round side of things? We've got 8 byes, man. Like throughout the coming up over until halfway through the season, we haven't even released the date and times for round 17 to 24 yet, and 24 won't get released until a few weeks before that. Is there something that we can do to fix this as an industry?
100% there is. Now, I'll talk you through obviously what I've come up with, and I'll take you right to the end. Round 24, leave it as is. Sports, whether it's English Premier League, National Football League, AFL, they obviously want to get those games in the last round of the season on the marquee time slots to be able to get, obviously the ladder obviously comes into it as well, but to get the games in the right time slots for the fans, et cetera, keep the suspense, that's great. Scrap this floating fixture, it's bullshit. People that want to travel interstate can't book flights, and I think it starts at round 16 this year. That draw for the remainder of the season, but round 24 won't come out until around about round 12. That gives you a month to book flights and accommodation, and you take it in consideration to a stop holidays. So let's just get the rounds going from opening round or round 1 all the way around to round 23 like we used to do, get it from there. To eliminate this, having these buys in round 2 is ridiculous. I've come up with a solution here. Opening round, as we said, and we've bunged on about it that many times, opening round, have every team play and have it opening round 1. Where I've got a really good solution is that we have a mid-season bye where you can potentially put your state of origin in there if you wanted to. That way, every team gets a bye. Do players get a week off? They don't. But the best don't really want to have a week off. They want to keep going from there. The other way that you could do this so teams do get 2 byes is obviously have a mid-season bye with a state of origin or a representative game of some sort. We get to about, let's say, round 10 or round 16, for example, and we have every Victorian team play each other. So Collingwood rivalry and Collingwood, Carlton, Essendon, Hawthorn, et cetera. The interstate sides, so the 2 sides from Queensland, and you know where I'm going with this, 2 sides from Queensland, 2 sides from South Australian WA, that's your bye. Then all of a sudden we reverse the roles and we have a derby, showdown, Q Clash, Battle of the Bridge, Victorian side, sit on your bum for a week and watch it. That will do a number of things. It will basically get bums on seats in Victoria, because if you put some blockbuster games on at the MCG over that round, you could potentially have a Thursday night, a Friday night, a double header on a Saturday, whether you play one at the MCG or one at Marvel, and then have 2 games again on a Sunday. And I think that works out. That'll be 5 games. There's your Victorian teams covered. And then the weekend after, we have Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday and Sunday football, 4 games. and that will get bums on seats. You'll get 60,000 at Optus Stadium, you'll get 55,000 at Adelaide Oval, 40,000 at the Gabba, and then 40,000 at the SCG. I don't know. How does that sound to you guys?
I love the fact that like you've got all the Victorian teams that can have like their own derbies and stuff like that, and then the interstate guys have the week off, and the next week they do theirs, because then what happens is everybody gets a week off and there's no travel. There's no travel for everybody, you know, and then the week after that, you've all stayed at your own state and stuff like that. Then you can send Freo to Brizzy and Gold Coast to West Coast or something like that. You know, you can do whatever you need to do, you know, like once that's done. There is a comment here, and there is a point that I really wanted to make too, just before I get Sean's input on it. There's one here. There's a comment here from DJ Williams that says, "Let's play like the old days." I would love to have it fixture wise, where everybody plays everybody once up until round 18, 17, 18, 19 or whatever it is. And then you can have it a bit compromised where you play another team twice and based on where you finished the last year. That's how it used to be done. I think that's fantastic. The hardest part about that though is that you're going to have, and I said this on the Into the Woods podcast last night, so if you haven't already, make sure you give them a subscribe and you listen to it. In a couple of years' time, Tassie are going to enter the competition. We're going to have 19 teams. There is a team having a bye every single week. It's going to be exactly like the 2011 season when Gold Coast came into the competition. You are going to have a bye, one team every week. I personally think that actually helps the structure of the competition, because you won't have to then have all these teams having byes when you know you're going to have one every week. So it sort of balances it out a bit more. But then what happens by 2035 when we've got 20 teams? And that's going to happen by 2035. And I know 2035 seems like a while away. Relax, because 2015, 2016, with the Dogs won the flag, felt like yesterday. You know, so it's going to come quick. I just think they've got to find some sort of balance here. Your proposal's fantastic, though, Matt. I think that's spot on. Sean, what's your thoughts on the whole buys and stuff?
I mean, in terms of like having like, you know, obviously with the Pies having a bye in round 2, personally, I just think it's just too early in the season. Personally, I would want it somewhere like in the middle, especially when you've like just, you know, like you've literally just like had a preseason. You've been like preparing for you know, the whole season ahead itself. Just to play the 2 games and to basically like have a rest. Like I'm just the idea of it, I'm just not really like a fan of, because, you know, I feel like that there's already been some teams that have struggled to get into the season. So I feel like the continuity of it each week just does not make any sense at all. And I guess for me, and I don't know, it does sound weird when I say it, but I would want the AFL to sort of treat the sport kind of like as if it's like a circus, in the sense where you've got all these like, you know, performance acts and stuff. And at the end of the day, if you're a promoter, you should be making sure that you're putting on the best show you can. And yeah, I don't know, just having a bye round 2, 3, 4, whatever the structure is. I don't even care to know what the structure is, to be honest, because I just think it's just way too early in the season. You know, and especially when AFL players have come out and even said that sometimes it takes them like 6 weeks to get into the season itself.
Well, I'll tell you this, Sean. There's 8 bye rounds in the next 13 weeks.
Yeah, well,
I'm pretty sure it's 8.
That's wrong. That's wrong.
8. Yeah. I'm pretty sure it's 8 rounds.
How would this work with an 18-team competition that we've got right now? And I appreciate the comment that Hopper's Barbecue just made then. But we get to, let's say we're doing the fixture for 2027 next year. Now, every team play. I don't understand this concept about how, and I need to go back and do some research. That it happened last year that Carlton played West Coast twice before Carlton played other sides once.
I'm pretty sure Carlton played against West Coast and North Melbourne before we even played one game against Richmond.
I think you might be right too. Yeah, yeah.
And then Geelong
in there, and then round 20 last year for
and then Geelong's run home. They played Richmond within 6 weeks of each other twice.
That's right. Yeah. So let's just say that you play rounds, opening round, whatever you want to call it. Every team plays everyone once. Where you finish on the ladder, I want to use Collingwood as an example here, but where Collingwood finished last year was 4th. Collingwood played teams 1 to 6 twice in the last 6 or 5 rounds of the season. If you finish 8th, you play teams 7 to 12, and if you finish 17th, you play teams 13 to 18. If that doesn't make equality, then I don't know what does.
Yeah.
But I will say this, and I'm pretty sure that we will both agree, and a lot of people will agree. Ever since this guy Andrew Dillon has taken over from Bill McLaughlin, he has taken this game to a new low year on year. This opening round idea was his. Gather round is obviously Gillon McLaughlin's brainchild. That is fantastic. I love it. I'm heading to Adelaide in a couple of weeks for the 3rd time in a row, or 3rd year in a row. I can't wait. But now we've got wildcard round. Now we've got all this other crap. We've got all these rules coming in. Some of the new rules I like. I'm a big fan of the out of bounds rule. I've seen it coming now. The stand rule has to go.
Yeah.
The stand rule has to go. We've seen instances on Saturday night, and this is not pro Collingwood because it's Collingwood, but the instance where you had 5 Collingwood players around the mark. The umpire, I did not hear the umpire on the coverage say stand, and I've not heard it on the replay say stand. All of a sudden, they get a 50-metre penalty. It is causing confusion. The 3rd man up, we spoke about a couple of weeks, needs to come back. AFL, if you're watching, fix this fucking game before you lose it, because the fans have had enough. Andrew Dillon's always said, I'm going to be listening to the fans and I'm all about the fans. Bullshit, Andrew Dillon. The only person you care about is yourself. Scrap this opening fucking round. Get 18 teams involved next year. Let's fix the game and let's get it back. And while I'm there was a poll done on a thing yesterday, and there was a big thing on SEN about it as well. After goal songs, more and more sides, and I've noticed that I think Melbourne were doing it on the weekend as well. They're having songs after goals. This will be a classic example of the AFL listening to the fans. Have a guess how many people, a percentage, like the goals after the songs after goals in the AFL. Rough percentage.
I think more of the interstate sides would like it. So I'm going to say
overall, people that did this poll yesterday on SEN, 25% of the people that voted
20%,
like the goals, like the songs after the goals. Probably 80% of them reside in the Brisbane metropolitan area. So I'm really interested to see what Andrew Dillon does here. The fans speak every week. Obviously, there's another issue with ticketed events or ticketed games at the MCG, which is now costing more people to go to the football. Got to do something about it. Let's play. I'm right there. Let's play like the old days. Bring back the fucking duffel coats. Let's get back to the footy and enjoy the footy that we knew growing up as kids.
There was a comment made to, I'm just trying to find it here, about here. Stuart Harris said, he goes, the problem will be the TV rights. They want a certain amount of games each week. So then make them bid for it and make them share it if that's the case. Because I think we know, and I think Channel 7 not having Saturday football, which is the biggest disgrace considering the grand finals on a Saturday. I think we're going to head down the direction over the next 5 to 10 years where AFL is going to be completely on a streaming platform. It's going to be Stan Sport. It's going to be, or maybe just Foxtel or something like that. So
let me talk to you about obviously what they do in the UK with the EPL and also the NFL in America. So back in the day when I was living in the UK 20 years ago, there was only one way that you could watch Premier League football. That was on Sky Sports. The FA Cup and leagues like that were shown on BBC and ITV. We're talking 20 years ago. Now, since I've left, you've got, I think, 83 or 84, some stupid amount of percentage of games are now shown on Sky Sports Live. You've got no free-to-air. You've got TNT Sports, which covers, and that's in the UK, that covers Premier League, it covers Champions League, etc., etc. I think the only football that you can get on free-to-air TV in the UK is the FA Cup. In the States, they've got Amazon Prime that do Thursday nights. They've got NBC, which do Sunday nights. They've got Fox Sports, which covers the local game that your team is in. So say, for example, live in San Francisco, being a Niners fan, you'll get every San Francisco 49ers game on some platform, some way, shape or form. And then I think you've got CBS as well. So there's 4 avenues there. We've seen it now with the VFL where 7 dumped the VFL. ABC have picked it up. KO have now picked it up. And guess what? 7 have gone, oh, we'd like to have it back. They're showing all Tassie games in the Channel 7 this year in Tasmania. So I think we're going to get to a point in the next 5 years where we're going to have bidding rights. So Stan Sport are massive. Channel 9 obviously owns Stan. Fox owed KO. Channel 7 their own. But I think what you're going to get here, guys, is you are going to get one thing where you're going to have potential AFL reserves competition, potential SANFL, WAFL, VFL into all these streaming platforms. And at the end of the day, it's going to come down to that.
Well, and it works good because at the end of the day, if it did get to that, that means salary cap goes up. It means 100%. TPP, depending on how big the CBA is and stuff like that, the TPP goes right up. You get higher salary caps. You get, that won't compromise anything because you're still paying players what they rightfully own. Just, I can see this happening, and I think Stan's probably the one that's going to really try and think just like they did for the EPL. Just one thing before I get Sean's opinion on the whole thing. Round 24, they released the fixture a couple of weeks beforehand, as in like the times and the dates and stuff like that. It's probably the one thing with the fixture that I absolutely love, the delay of round 24. It reminds me of the last day of the Premier League where you just like everyone plays at once sort of thing. But I would love to see the round 24 game where everybody plays at the same time on the same day. And because what happens is nobody knows what happens if it affects finals. You got wildcard round in there now, whether you like it or not. You could do it. Collingwood's playing against Brisbane or whatever it is at the MCG, or against Melbourne at the MCG, or whoever we've got in the last game. But then even if we win, our top 6 or top 4 is dictated by what's happening against the Western Bulldogs or North Melbourne at Marvel down the road, and they're playing at the same time. And just the suspense would be amazing. People will be flicking on TV. People will be doing whatever. And you still get enough time to get tickets and do what you want. I just think that if you want to make the theatre and the suspense of it, do it all at the same time. There are enough grounds around the country that can facilitate it. You got 2 grounds in Tassie. You got a ground in Western Australia. You got a ground in South Australia. You've got 3 or 4 grounds here in Victoria. You've got 2 grounds in Western Australia, in New South Wales, and the same in Queensland. That's enough. It can work. Sean, you want to add anything?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of like the times and like the games and stuff, like I personally wouldn't even mind if we just have I'm trying to think what the number would be. If like the first 18 games was like fixtured and we had like certain teams, I would actually like the last 6 games to actually not, obviously to be official, like of course, but like I would like to even like see a route where, because the season is so long, I wonder if it would be in the AFL's favour to even get to say 6 rounds to go and go, all right, these are the teams that are looking to make finals. Okay, well let's all like all these teams can like play off against each other. Whether it's like a top 6 all play each other, middle 6 and like the lower 6 all play each other. How that all works. Obviously, like the AFL can like figure that out, because I do sort of think that we do like in terms of the AFL itself, I feel like we are more in like more of a marathon type of sport rather than a sprint sport. So I think maybe being on the front foot and even getting the last 6 games of the season and just sort of being like, okay, now we've seen whatever it is, 18 rounds of football. Let's actually be proactive and let's actually because after round 18, you sort of know roughly like where all the teams are, where everyone sits. I think it might be probably easier and you probably get more viewers. Like, it'll make things more, interesting, because then if you're in the bottom 6, then at least you got a chance to win each week. It might also in some form take away like tanking. You could even do a thing where if you're in the bottom 6, instead of pick one going to the worst team, maybe pick one could go to the best team in the bottom 6. Like that's
my biggest. That's the one thing, and I said this last year. when I started my channel. It was one of the biggest points that I made, and I got absolutely crucified on YouTube and everywhere for it. Why would you reward the team that finishes down the bottom? Have the best. I had the best team of the bottom 4 or the bottom 6, however you want to call it. And towards the end of the season, regardless if they play each other or not, or they play whatever, the team who finishes in 14th or 12th or whatever it is, or however you want to do it, they're the team that get the number 1 draft pick, because in that zone, in that group, they perform the best. And that gives people ammunition. That gives clubs ammunition who are second last, third last, whatever. Clubs like Richmond, clubs like Essendon to be like, hey, listen, let's win this because we're about to get the best kid, and this is a strong draft, and we could have the next fucking Nathan Buckley, James Heard, Michael Boss playing for our football club. I think that's massive. Just to go over to, before we say goodbye, Sean, I just wanted to put this out there. The next round of the season where we don't have a bye is gather round. Everything leading up to gather round, there are byes. Round 6, right after gather round, there's no bye either. But then I think it's round 7 or round 8. I think it's round 8, sorry. Then we have, look, we've got 3 weeks, and then 8 or 9, we have more byes coming up. So
it literally makes no sense, because at the end of the day, as I said, like, treat this sport like it's a circus. Why, if you have the talent that's gonna, put bums in seats and make everyone go like, oh my god, this is incredible, why are you making their job harder? Like that it just makes no sense to me. And then also as well, I do want to touch on a quick point, especially when it comes to like the under 19s. When the whole talk before was about trying to get these like kids and stuff. I've been a massive advocate of just going back to the older days, because even when it comes like NGA players, if we literally have a competition, AFL, and you've got seniors, reserves, under 19s, it just streamlines everything. And especially if you have under 19s and you've got NGAs or you've got, say, a really talented kid, let's just say, like, because I know Dougie Cochran is going to be like one of those like number 1 picks, and I think because he's from South Australia, I think he was like tied to Port, I think. For me personally, I think we should be embracing those things. Like, as long as the clubs are paying their worth, and if Dougie Cochran's like pick 1, we'll obviously see that. And then at the same time too, if you've got a kid like, I don't know, say, because we had Horn Francis go from North Melbourne to Port Adelaide, because he was quote unquote homesick. Whether that's true or not, I don't think it matters. But having a system where, especially as well, if you have, say, a Collingwood under 19s, a Western Bulldogs under 19s, an Adelaide Crows under 19s, a West Coast under 19s, you can also do your NGAs through that. You can even maybe set up systems where you go under 16s, 14s, 12s, whatever.
You do it's full academies. You can have academies they can play local clubs, but they could just be listed when they get to 19s. If you don't draft them, you can play them in the under 19s, and you can give them that sort of pathway, and that doesn't affect your salary cap or anything like that. You know what I mean? So,
and also as well too, because the whole thing where it can come into it where, but what if a club has like 10 NGAs that like come through, and that's
just cap it. Just cap it.
No, like you literally just be like, hey, that's the price. If you don't want to pay, that's fine, but that's the price if you want that. And then at the end of the day, if that club doesn't want that player, well then you can't pick the side, because you obviously weren't talented enough to be in a luxury. Because I think with the Horn Francis, if Horn Francis was tied to, say, a Port Adelaide would have matched that bid, and they would have gone after him. I think we need to, and again, then you take away the whole thing of Horn Francis then going to North, and then having the whole situation at North happening. And it is a thing of like, if you literally have a dream, let's just say there's a 15-year-old kid out there saying, my dream is to play for Collingwood. I want to be a 300 gamer, or blah, blah, all this stuff at Collingwood. Yeah, there's a path if you're good enough. And I think to have that path, I think would be like really awesome. And it's been something, and the fact that, we even say like the draft is like too compromised. I honestly don't think it's compromised enough. I think it should be basically fully compromised, because at the end of the day, if you have like the talent and especially as well, if you have these kids that are being developed by these clubs, why are clubs going out of their way to develop talent that they don't even get in the first, like that they don't even end up getting, right? So
They should have first preference on that, just like Sydney had first preference with Cochrane and the came in.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And then again, if you're a fan, there's at the very least you're going to have one good team out of 3. So whether if your team is in the win now scenario, or you're kind of there but you're kind of not, or it's like straight out future and you're rebuilding, there's at least one team you can get behind your club against. Like I just think that there's so many advantages to these things. And
Matt, do you want to add to that? Sorry, I can see.
Yeah, I just want to. I mean, we can bang on all day about the academies in the AFL. The SANFL do it really well. They've got 16s, 18s into their reserves, into the ones, which is great. But the comment that just came up before it, and had us all know this, being a bit old school as well, building a club from under 19s level up is the perfect way to go. That comment there. You've only got to go back to the 1990 premiership side with the likes of Gavin Brown, etc.
Were they premiership players in '86?
How many Collingwood premiership players in 1990 were in that under 19s premiership in '86? That's the point proven. Shawnee, you hit it on the head before. The AFL need to be proactive. Unfortunately, we've just got a fucking idiot at the helm. No disrespect to you, Andrew Dillon, but you are a fucking idiot. You do not know what proactivity is. All the AFL worry about is cash flow, how to make their next dollar. We've got Greg Swan in now, who the jury's out whether he's going to do a great job or not. But we need to obviously get this game back, and proactivity will not happen under Andrew Dillon's reign.
That's it, Sean. We have to move on because we're going to finish up soon. But thank you so much for jumping on tonight. Really appreciate it, mate.
Yeah, not all good anytime.
All right.
Well, sorry, mate.
no, it's good. It's good. We've got heaps of people on. This is really good tonight. Just before we finish now, there was a whole bunch of comments before in the chat in regards to Bobby Hill. It is some fairly, I mean, we kept this towards the end because obviously we want people to stay on and stuff like that. So, but let's just cut straight to it. Mitch Cleary broke this earlier on today. Price preparing for Bobby Hill to return to the club as early as Monday. Personal opinion, I'm not sure if we're going to physically see him on the track Monday. We might, but if he's back at the club on Monday, I think that's fantastic. The word is, and the story is reported, that he has started training again on his own. He's speaking to people at the club, not just the coaching staff, like other players and stuff like that. So he is integrating back into it. Obviously, there's some relationships and stuff there that probably need to, dot the I's, cross the T's, and make sure everything's going there. He is not, and this is my opinion, but there is absolutely no way that we are going to see him, I think, before the King's birthday game. He's obviously going to have to do training. He's going to have to break into the VFL team, get match fitness up there and go there, and that's without any more setbacks. What's your take on it?
I think there's been so much criticism of him personally, and I get frustration. People get frustrated about everything. Perfect start. Yep, cool. The question is, when would you put him in the twos, and how long do you keep him there? He's got so much shit over the off season. Look, it's a personal issue. There's only probably a handful of people that actually know what's going on. Everyone's heard rumors. Rumors are rumors until they're proven truth. To put a positive spin on this, I think it's the greatest news that we've had in a while. The club were preparing pretty much to not see him this year at all. Now we're at round 2, leading into round 3. The Norm Smith medalist from the grand final 3 years ago is coming back to the club. Now, he's going to have to do a bucket load of training, strength training, agility training, obviously football training, etc. The most important thing, I've got no doubt, Andreas and people listening, I've got absolutely no doubt that the club are going to welcome him back with open arms, because Craig McRae has basically been by this guy's side as a mentor more than a football coach, but as a mate and as a mentor. I don't see any issue in coming back. what Bobby Hill needs to wrap his head around is that he now owes the Collingwood Football Club big time, and he needs to prove his worth to this, not only the club but the league. Because if this something happens that falls over again, he's going to cop so much more shit than what he already has. I'm 100% in agreement with you. I think they need to probably sit down and map out a plan for him. Now, if it was me, I would go right to the end and say, when do we see your return? And this is where Jared Wade, our high performance coach, will come into it. Wadey, let's sit down, let's map out a plan. When can we realistically see him play? Now, I'm going to say...
And that's with everything, just quickly, that's with everything going spot on to plan.
Correct.
No illness, no injuries, no, leaving, taking more time off. This is every session committed until a certain point, and that's if you're ready.
So I think the King's birthday game is round 12.
Yeah.
Round 12? No.
Round 13.
13. I would dare say, so what's that? That's 11 weeks away. I would dare say, let's get 8 to 10 weeks of training in him. I would be starting him in the twos around that date, so around early to mid-June. If there's a game that I'm going to earmark him for, that's going to be 4 weeks later, and it's going to be against the Gold Coast Suns at People First Stadium. And there's a reason why I picked that game. It's obviously 4 weeks out from that time frame, but more importantly, his return will be on the Gold Coast, not in Melbourne. So the media speculation will – can you imagine the media speculation around his comeback? When he went down, there was him and Jordan Ngoe, and I think Billy Frampton went down and played a VFL game at
Dan McStay. It was with Dan McStay against Geelong last year.
No. It wasn't that. No, it was a Channel 7 game. It was a Saturday night, and I'm thinking it was down
Frankston.
Yeah, correct. Now, they got 5,500 people to that game because of obviously Geordie was coming back, Bobby Hill was coming back. There's going to be a lot of media scrutiny and a lot of media attention on Bobby Hill when he steps foot onto the training track his whole way through, and as he gets closer and closer to a return. Absolutely, I agree with that comment too. But when he makes his VFL comeback, there's going to be eyes and ears and everything on him. There is no better time for a Collingwood person, because obviously the scrutiny this club gets, to put him on the Gold Coast in front of 23,000 people. 22,500 are going to be Collingwood supporters. They are going to go ape shit every time he goes near the ball. But you get him out of that Melbourne bubble to make his comeback and allow him to just get away from Melbourne. This is what the players love. They love getting away from Melbourne to go to Adelaide or to Perth or to Sydney or to Queensland. Get away from the media scrutiny that's Melbourne and get away from the bubble that's Melbourne and just focus on football. And I reckon that's the game that they should earmark him in round 16. Can you imagine if we're floating around sort of ladder position 6 to 8 to 9 with 8 weeks to go, and we've got a fit Bobby Hill coming back in? That is going to scare the shit out of some sides.
Yeah, it works well. And you look at the games that we've played already this season, we're still – I know we've got Elliott and, Schultz and stuff like that, and, these smaller, like, really good forwards, but you just need the pizzazz, you need the class, you need the silk, you need, just the awareness that someone like a Bobby Hill has. And if you put him against Adelaide, I think the ball goes into the forward line, you can put 2 goals on there and there's the game tied alone, just on that there, So it's going to be interesting.
Just on that as well, mate. Obviously, we've got him until 2030. Now, I just want to fast forward to the end of this year. We need to throw the kitchen sink at Ben King. I've seen enough of him over the last 12 months. We need to go after him hard. Do we forgo Zach Butters for that? I don't know. Talk around town. Is it
we
Zach
did
Butters?
this? We did this last night on the Into the Wood podcast, and I'll keep my same answer. But I'm going to give you 1, 2, 3, 4. And the options are Butters, King, Humphreys, and Zach Bailey. Who do you put in what order?
Head or heart?
What Collingwood need, not what you want.
Ben King, definitely. I think Keith Ford is obviously critical with what we need. Zach Bailey would be a perfect replacement for Jamie Elliott. Whether we can fit it into the salary cap. Obviously, the issue is going to be the salary cap. Zach Butters, you'd love to have him link up with Nick. We saw what they did together in State of Origin. Bailey Humphrey, honestly, I can't see him leaving Gold Coast. I just think from a Gold Coast perspective, they have been so good. I know they've only played Geelong that were beaten up opening round, and they played West Coast and they they were West Coast won that second half on Sunday, which Damien I'd be filthy about. But I think with where the direction of Gold Coast are going, I think Bailey Humphrey will probably stay on the Gold Coast. I think Zach Butters will go to Collingwood to the Western Bulldogs, and I think Ben King is the one that we would have to go after. Adelaide are obviously going to table a massive offer to Zach Bailey. Whether Brisbane want to or can match it, I don't know. But I think from a Collingwood perspective, when we've seen it the first 2 weeks, and I can't remember who said it on the weekend, but our attack looks toothless. We've seen that in the last 2 weeks. So to have someone down there, and it's a bit of a slap in the face too for Collingwood that we've got McStay, we've got Jack Buller, and we've got Tim Membry. Brady Mychek steps out for Melbourne in his first game, kicks 3 goals on the weekend. So, yeah, I think from a Collingwood perspective, what do Collingwood need? Collingwood need a key forward. Ben King's the man.
I think the days of the 3 tall forwards might be over. I don't think Membry's going to be with us for too long. I think this is the part where, maybe one more year or the end of this year, I think he'll probably finish up his career. And then I still go back to what we said at the very start of the program. I think McStay needs to be that all-rounder. He can be a bit of a swing man. He can help out in the ruck. He doesn't have to be the permanent forward. You probably keep Buller in that and develop him. We've also got Zach McCarthy coming through over the next couple of years. That's going to be massive too. My 1, 2, 3, 4 is I've still got Butters as number 1 only because I personally think the drive that we've got from the midfield into the forward line isn't 100%. When Nick delivers the ball into the forward line, when Lipinski delivers the ball into the forward line, it looks fantastic. But I still think you need just to build that around Nick, and Zach Butters would be perfect. But then looking at the forward line over the last 2 weeks, you can paint arguments for either or really. To put him in there. Humphreys, I don't think we're probably going to go after too hard, I think, because he's in contract and stuff. And the Bailey side of things, I think it's too much for us, for our cap. It would be a great replacement for Elliott, and he'd be fantastic. But I think you'd probably go after Bailey if you were like right there at the premiership window, like literally touching the cup, and you just needed that final X factor. We've got that in McCreary. We've got that in DeGoey. We've got that in Nick. We've even got that in Josh and Dan Houston as well. It's not a necessity. Necessity is either Butters or King, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And funny you talk about Dan McStay being a swing man because 2 weeks ago when we did our opening round, where did I have Dan McStay? Centre half back.
In the back line.
I looked
at it. I looked at it and I was like,
I would love to experiment with that. We did see it with we've seen players go back as swingmen in the past, and not necessarily just at Collingwood. But I would love just either Dan needs to get some confidence. There's no two ways about it. There's something lacking at the moment. Whether we put him down next week, who are we going to have to go against? Jesse Hogan, Jay Stringer next week. It's going to be a fascinating clash against GWS, and then obviously we've got the big one at the Gabba against the Lions, who obviously are going to be without Harris Andrews as well. So that's we've got a big fortnight coming up, and then obviously everyone's heading over to Adelaide for gather round, and then we do it all again with the traditional rivals in Essendon and Carlton. So yeah, big 5 weeks coming up, mate, for sure.
How good is it? Footy's back.
Footy's back in a big way. It's fantastic.
That's it,
mate. I just want to quickly finish on a bit more of a whack at the AFL. And we talked about obviously 7 games this weekend. We've got on paper a really good game tomorrow night, Hawthorn Sydney. Now Sydney are going to be missing Goulden for 4 weeks, which with that shoulder injury, Isaac Heaney didn't even make the flight down to Melbourne today from Sydney. Hawthorn obviously got belted pretty much in the opening round against the Giants, and then came back and belted Essendon last week. We've got a cracking game on Friday night, Adelaide and the Dogs, and I think that's a toss of the coin job there, and that's going to be a very interesting game. But come Saturday and Sunday, the fixture's shit. Have a look at the games.
So we got Richmond. We got Richmond, Gold Coast at the G.
Yep.
Gold Coast will kill them. You've got Giants and St Kilda, but that's at thing.
That'll be in front of 10,000 people.
Yeah, so the Fremantle Melbourne game at Optus Stadium. I think Freo are going to slaughter them, even though Melbourne play quite good. Although, just quietly, Melbourne are actually $3.29 to win that game, and they did play right against it. That's not a bad little dabble gamble responsibly.
But have a look at Sunday. Have a look at Sunday's 2 games.
What a waste of a day.
Correct. What a waste of a weekend, AFL.
Port Adelaide versus Essendon at 3:15. And then you got, look, to be honest with you, I reckon the West Coast and North games probably got more pizzazz than the Port Adelaide Essendon one, because you just think, who would you rather be if you lose that game out of West Coast and North? Like, the contest will be good, but Jesus Christ, you could have picked something a bit better.
I'm actually. It was great to see North Melbourne do well on the weekend. And look, yes, it was against Port Adelaide, and everyone knows how much I hate Port Adelaide, but just for the confidence, they've obviously played us in Ballarat in that practice game, and we put the 2s on in the last quarter, and they overran us. That's great. Good for their confidence. They come out and get a win like that. I think it's an interesting game, that one on Sunday, West Coast and North, because, as I said, West Coast basically did beat the reigning premiers, the premiership favourites in the second half on their own patch, which we know how hard it is to play Gold Coast up at People First Stadium. But looking at the fixtures there, and then I'm a little bit intrigued by this West Coast and North Melbourne game. I think the West Coast obviously have a bit of a tail in their legs, and then look at the 4 teams that got the bye. 4 of the biggest teams in the competition have got a bye this weekend, sitting on their ass doing nothing. So you've really butchered it there. But you look at that game there at the top. You just had it there, Adelaide and West Coast, Adelaide and the Dogs, and then pretty much 5-0 all draws after that.
No, it's a bit lackluster. And then the week after, Thursday night's Geelong versus Adelaide, so that's okay. And then to finish off, you've got Carlton versus Melbourne, and then on the byes, you've still got Gold Coast, Bulldogs, Hawthorn, and Sydney. And to be fair, they're 4 teams that are right up there contending for the flag this year. You know what I mean? So
I don't know.
Do
we shorten the season, or what do we do? I don't know. It's above my pay grade. I'd love to get a job at AFL House, because I'll definitely try and fix it somehow.
Well, according to the Hopper Bros Barbecue, you should apply for one.
Excellent.
And that is a great.
Just before we wrap up, you've got a new show coming up in a few weeks, I see, the Monday Night 4. Yeah, the Monday Night 4. So a bit of a theme from the wrestling. I don't have the promo or anything like that up at the moment. I've still got a few things I've got to sort out with that one there. But basically, 4 blokes, 4 different teams, all in. We'll have some banter between us, some games, some know your history, some trivia questions. There's other little segments that are going to happen. We're going to start it off on the 6th of April, Monday the 6th of April, have a couple of weeks off, and then it's basically just going to happen every fortnight until the end of the season. But there's going to be my mate, we know he's got his own travel show on YouTube. He's a big Richmond supporter. And then we've got my mate Matt, who's a massive Dogs fan, a bit more placid, a bit more humble compared to the others. Then you got my head, which everybody is used to, but then you've got the Grandmaster. You've got the one who Port Phillip Bay.
Snapper from Port Phillip Bay is going to be joining us, and him and I actually go way back. We've been friends for 15 years, and so probably the only Carlton supporter that I truly respect, because he's very passionate and I don't want to fuck around with him, but I am going to on this show here. But it's going to be fantastic. I'm so happy that I was pumped up where he said 100%, and he's been messaging me flat every day. He's all excited for it. Can we just start now? I'm like, no, I've got to set it up properly.
I reckon next time he's on SEN, which will probably be, when's Carlton playing next weekend? So when Carlton have their next loss, will probably be next week. I'd love Snapper to just drop on. And for people listening, make sure you tune into YouTube on Monday, April the 6th for the Monday Night 4. I'll be on there. And, mate, I've never met Jacob, and I only know of him through you. But, mate, he's an absolute fucking legend on SEN. And the amount of passion that he delivers to Finey's final side. I mean, we need to get Mark Fine on the show at some point, mate, for sure.
I'm trying to pull a few strings.
I'd love to get Finey on, and Finey and Snapper and Dwayne Russell, and it'd be great to get some of these SEN boys on. But, mate, look, enjoy your weekend, everyone, with no Collingwood games. I might tune out of the footy this weekend, mate. I'll watch tomorrow night's game, and I'll watch Friday night's game with added interest. I think that's going to be a very interesting game. Adelaide obviously want to build on the momentum that they picked up on Saturday night against us, and the Dogs are just going from a strength to strength. So really excited to see where the Dogs end up this year. I think they're going to be well and truly up there, and Adelaide.
It's all about Saturday morning for me, 7 a.m. Man United away to Bournemouth.
Oh, well, there you go.
That's all. That's all that matters this week, mate.
We're playing Galatasaray on the morning, mate, in the round of 16. So we're 1-0 down after last week's game. So, looking forward to it, mate. And next time we catch up, it'll be in 2 weeks' time, which will be game night eve, when the Pies are in Brisbane to take on the Brisbane Lions. So it's
probably I'll work out with your schedule too, just so everyone knows too, and see what works out best for you. If it's the day before, if it's too busy, or if we just do it on the Tuesday or something like that.
Yeah, might do it on
Tuesday or Wednesday. It doesn't really matter. So,
and then I'm on a plane to Adelaide on the Sunday for Gather Round. So I'll do your review. I think I'm doing your review for the Fremantle game, which I'm really looking forward to it. So,
Correct.
So, no, fantastic, everyone, for tuning in. Thank you again. We'll thank you.
Big numbers tonight.
Hopper Buzz or Hopper Bros Barbecue. We'll thank those guys, and you've got another sponsor there as well.
Yeah, Ultra Fix Surface Specialist for all your fixing needs, all your Ultra Fix, all your surface specialist stuff that you need, tiles, grout, everything. Let us know. We'll get you in touch with Julio, and he'll fix you up. Guys, thank you so much for tuning tonight. Matt, thank you so much for your time. Everybody who joined in tonight, really appreciate it. We will be back in a couple of weeks for the fan forum. The stuff doesn't stop. Previews, reviews, and everything, and tips for this week. Another video will be posted up later this week. So just because the Pies aren't playing doesn't mean that we stop here. But for now, thank you very much, everyone, and we shall see you later.
Go Pies.
Stopping me.